Wife used my money on luxury hotels with lover, so I bankrupted her in court. My spouse spent thousands of dollars of our money on her affair. I patiently documented everything and made sure she repaid every single dime. In just a few weeks, my life has transformed completely. I discovered that my spouse was being unfaithful, and now everything is significantly worse. Just so you know, before this revelation, I felt like everything was progressing wonderfully for the two of us. We had started attempting to conceive our first child. Things have been improving substantially for me career-wise, and we recently purchased a house. Things were progressing the way most people desire things to progress, and then I just had to discover that my spouse was being unfaithful to me. Am I even permitted to experience happiness at this point? I'm 31 and she is 30. We've been married to each other for 4 years, approaching 5, and we knew each other for 3 years before then. I believed that I knew this person thoroughly, but I couldn't have been more mistaken. All of the time that I believed she was visiting the spa, attending conventions, or going on trips with her family and friends, she was busy being intimate with another man and spending my money on him. It's relevant, so I have to mention that she is self-employed and works in an artistic field. She creates her products and then sells them online. However, in some cases she attends conventions and events to sell them there. It doesn't have stability like a regular job. Some months are excellent and other months are challenging. In an average year, her income is probably only 20% of the total household income. It's not terrible though, and it makes her content. I encouraged her as much as I could to continue and to improve with the things that she creates. It was only in recent years that I have made solid efforts to be more financially responsible. I'll blame it on my relative youth before. Now I budget. I review finances for the month to see what I spent excessively on and so forth. I don't do it every single month, but I'm attempting to make it a habit. I think that change in my behavior was the only thing that alerted me to the fact that Candace was being unfaithful to me. A new month had just arrived and I decided to examine some of the bills from the previous month. I felt like the total expenditure for that month was higher than usual. I didn't think of it at the time, but I remember that Candace said she'd handle the calculations for that month. I thought it was because I was occupied at work and she wanted to take some of the burden off of me. But in the end, I realized that it was just because she wanted to conceal her activities. The first thing that I noticed was that money had been spent at a very expensive hotel for one night. And then the nights after that, the transaction switched to a regularly priced hotel. I noticed that there was a large purchase from a designer clothing store. Those together added nearly $2,500 to the bill for that month. It had nothing to do with me since I hadn't purchased anything special for myself in quite some time and I wasn't the one who had gone to a hotel. She was the one who had traveled for 3 days for a convention and I assumed she spent one of those days in the expensive hotel and the other 2 in a more affordable one. As for what she purchased, I hadn't seen a new bag or new shoes with her, and even if she had bought them for herself, she would have informed me, and I knew that for a fact. I thought about confronting her, but my mind instantly went to the possibility that she might be having an affair. That was when I decided to retrieve the financial statements for previous months to see if there was anything there that I couldn't recognize or make sense of. I had to do it over several days because she would return home and I didn't want her to be able to tell that I was onto something. It took about a week, but after that, I was entirely certain that she had been spending the money on things that she never informed me about and things that seemed to indicate an affair. I don't like to be the kind of person whose first assumption is infidelity, but in this case, it seemed like the only logical conclusion for me to reach. I had to go back about 6 months. Before then, I couldn't see anything that didn't make sense. But up to that point, there were hotel stays that didn't match up with the days that she had attended conventions for business. There were transactions where several $100s were spent at stores that she had no reason to frequent, and there were even some large ATM withdrawals that I couldn't remember anything about. We conduct most of our business without using cash. If she were withdrawing $1,000 at an ATM, it would be something that she would inform me about. To be honest, I blame myself because I haven't been vigilant enough with our finances over time. If I had been, this shouldn't have gone past the first or second month of her doing this nonsense. If you're enjoying this story of calculated revenge, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily stories of justice being served. I grabbed her phone when she was taking a nap. I knew that I wasn't going to have much time to do what I wanted to do, but I went through her messages and her social media applications to see if I could discover who her partner was. I knew that if I could find that conversation thread bread, I'd be able to do a whole lot with it. Thankfully for me, I did. The guy's name was Cedric, and she didn't even make any attempt to conceal the inappropriate conversations on her phone. She had spoken to him that same day and the night before. She had sent him intimate photos, and he had reciprocated. It was clear that he was the one she was being unfaithful with, or at least one of them. To actually have proof that she was being unfaithful to me was a very different emotion than only suspecting it. At that point, it felt like all my hard work towards making our marriage function had been a waste. What's the purpose of sacrificing your time, your effort, your money, and your love just for someone to decide that they want to destroy that because they can't stop themselves from being intimate with someone else? We're humans. I can understand being attracted to people even as a married person, but she should never get close to doing anything with them. It shouldn't even be a remote possibility if you respect your marriage. Clearly, she didn't. I had to return her phone because she started to stir. I had gotten the confirmation I needed, though. It was difficult because anxiety was destroying me and because I had to force myself to act normal around her despite the strong emotions I was experiencing towards her. It was only the night of the same day that I got a chance to access her phone again and really examine everything. This time around, I was able to export the entire conversation. I put the phone back after that, and the next day, when she wasn't around, I got the chance to look at certain dates that I had marked in the financial statement. I cross-referenced them with the messages that were made before or on the same date as those transactions. For all those fancy hotel stays, I was able to confirm that every single one of them had been to meet up with Cedric. In each case, because of how expensive the hotel was, they stayed only a single night to treat themselves. And then they spent the remaining time in a regular hotel since it was more affordable and less likely to raise red flags. That was what I needed to see to know that Cedric knew she was a married woman. For each of those dates that I was able to confirm, I noted them in a notebook I had with a short description of how much had been spent and what she had spent it on. I went to the expensive purchases next. There were 8 of them in total, and I was only able to link 5 of them to him through the texts, but I noted those as well. Then there were visits to spas once again during the time that she had been away on business. In those cases, I had to check the spa online if I had enough information to find it online and then check the pricing for their services. Half of them were for a single person, and I assumed that was for her alone, but the other half were priced at couples rates. And in some of those cases, the messages confirmed that they had gone to the spa together. In those cases, once again, I noted everything. Finally, the ATM withdrawals. Every single one of those had been preceded by Cedric coming to her with some sob story about how his car had broken down, how he was behind on rent, or how his sister had been wrongfully detained and needed the bail money. Each of those times, seemingly with very little hesitation, the person I called my spouse had gone to the ATM, withdrawn the money, and handed it to him. It was pretty incredible for me to see how foolish she was when it came to pleasing her affair partner. This is a man who she had only started messaging 8 months ago. They'd only been seeing each other for 6 months. Yet she lost all of her common sense when it came to helping him out of tough spots and making sure that he was living a life that was clearly way beyond his income bracket. And the worst part of all that was that it was being enabled by a joint account with money that was mostly from my job and my hard work. To me, that's such an insult. It makes the infidelity even worse because not only do they not respect you enough to stay faithful, but they don't even respect you enough to leave the money that you earned alone. If she wanted to fund her affair, she could have opened a personal account and pulled money out of there. The problem was that she wanted to live a lifestyle beyond her means, and she could only do that if my hard-earned money was included. Amazing stuff. I cross-checked everything, including using a red highlighter to mark the relevant transactions on a copy of the financial statement that I had printed out. I did the same with the messages I had printed out. When I summed everything that had been spent over those 6 months, I realized that she had gotten away with spending just under $19,000 of our money on her affair. The last thing that I did was hire a private investigator. I gave him Cedric's name, phone number, and all the other details I knew. It didn't even take him up to 24 hours before he returned with Cedric's full name and social media profiles. I haven't done anything with it yet, but I do plan to at some point. Maybe that'll come after the separation is finalized. I'll put it to good use, but for now, I'm just glad to have it for when I need it. I've already reached out to a family law attorney, and the paperwork should be ready today. I should end up confronting her soon, and I'll be sure to return with another update once that's done. For now, I just need to focus on making sure that I have the upper hand on her for when things get serious. Update 1. I confronted Candace, and the good part is that it went exactly how I expected it to. I had the upper hand since I had done all my research, and there was pretty much nothing that I didn't know about her affair. At that point, I chose a Saturday to confront her, and I started by acting how I would have acted if I trusted her significantly more. Instead of coming straight out with all the evidence that I had, I focused on the issues that I had with the financial statements first because I wanted to see what she had to say about them. After all, there was no way that she expected to get away with it quiet forever. I knew she probably had an excuse prepared for me. She didn't attempt to deny the expensive hotel stays, claiming that those had been her treating herself during the conventions that she attended. The problem with that was that those hotels cost nearly 4 times as much as a regular hotel would. It was an expense that had been hard to justify, especially since she was already spending money to travel for most of those conventions anyway. When it came to the cash withdrawals from ATMs, the excuse for that was close to the truth. She said that relatives had been in need of money and they were way too embarrassed to go to anyone else. Because of how private they had been with their requests, she chose to honor it by not telling me since they had promised to repay. I told her that it didn't make sense that she hadn't informed me since we were married. Even if they wanted to keep things on the down low, she was taking the money out of our joint account. It made no sense that she would take it out and feel like she didn't have the right to inform me. I think she had never considered what to say when it came to the luxury gifts because she stumbled over herself at that point. She couldn't say that she had bought them to surprise me since they were with her affair partner. She couldn't explain the purchases as gifts for a friend since those would be ridiculously expensive gifts to buy for anyone who wasn't extremely close. It also didn't make any sense for her to buy those kinds of gifts with money from our joint account without asking me. When I saw that she didn't really know what to say, that was when I decided that it was a good time for me to confront her for real. I asked her whether she had bought those gifts for Cedric, and I said it casually, as if it wasn't even a big deal. Her mouth was open, and she didn't know what to say. I asked again, but she was still speechless. I couldn't understand why she was struggling to answer me. I didn't make it easier for her. I locked eyes with her, waiting for an answer, and it took her a long time. But the first thing that she did was to ask me how I knew about Cedric. I told her that it didn't matter. She didn't have the right to ask me any questions like that. She just had to explain why she had been spending all that money on him. At that point, I let her know that I knew that everything she had said before was a lie. She cursed to herself because I put her in a position that she genuinely hadn't expected to be in. I told her that I was waiting for her to explain herself, and I genuinely was. I wasn't going to give her a chance to escape the situation. I wanted her to admit to the affair, especially since I was audio recording on my phone. I also just wanted her to have to deal with the shame of it. I had to wait almost 5 minutes before she told me that Cedric was a guy she had met at a convention in another city. He was also an artist and he was selling things at the same convention. She said that they had similar interests and it was easier for them to talk to one another. She admitted that she had made a mistake in getting too close to him, and the first time that they were together, as she called it, she had allowed her loneliness to take over and things just happened. It's so silly when you hear someone unfaithful try to explain their actions because they almost always try to make it sound significantly better than it was. They always try to act like they still had morals in that moment. Meanwhile, you know that's far from the case. She said that she had let herself get too deep in it, but she knew the entire time that what she was doing was wrong. She knew that she loved me the entire time and that she was planning to stop because of that. That was when she started to apologize over and over. If I were a pushover, I might have been swayed by how genuine it sounded, but that's not me. I told her that I was glad that she felt bad about it, but it wasn't going to change anything with us. I let her know that I had spoken to a family law attorney and she was going to be served with papers as soon as possible. That was when she broke down entirely. Genuinely, it frustrated me because you enjoyed 6 months of being unfaithful to me, but when you got caught, you suddenly hated the consequences. It was amusing to me. Anyhow, when I was done observing her, I told her to get her things and pack out. I gave her an hour, and as much as I could, I recorded her the entire time because I didn't want her to take anything that didn't belong to her, especially the expensive items. She already showed that she didn't mind taking from me. She was out of the house in 55 minutes. The next step in my life is legal separation, and hopefully that will go smoothly for me. Update 2. Guess who's a freshly separated man? That's me. Thank you to everyone for all the support through the process. It hurts to know that the love of your life never loved you as much, but it is what it is. I'm going to move on to better things. There are some advantages to being a single man again, if I want to look at the bright side of things. For the legal proceedings, to keep it short, things went to court. We live in an apartment that we rent, not a house. So, even though I kept it, I didn't have to pay some ridiculous amount out to her for her half. I only had to send a lump sum to her to get established in her own new place. I also had to pay spousal support because the discrepancy in our earnings is huge. Here's the fun part. I had her audio recording admitting to the affair, and I had all the proof I had patiently documented backed up with messages showing how much money she had spent on the affair. That was a major violation to the judge, and she was ordered to repay all of it back. She didn't have that much money available. An order was made to have it paid over time. Because she still wanted the money to get a new apartment, it meant that even more money was deducted from her spousal support payments. By the end of the support term, she would have repaid everything. What that meant is that the spousal support came extremely affordable for me, and it basically amounts to very little extra for her. I consider that a victory. She'll pay off her debt with the savings I'm making. As for her affair partner, I sent him a message since trying to catch him in public seemed like a very unnecessary risk. I let him know that I knew all about him and my spouse. I knew that he was taking advantage of her financially and that she was foolish enough to be taken advantage of. She had been spending my money and that was going to dry up. I told him that if I cared enough, I would have found him and figured out a way to make him regret it, but he wasn't worth my time. I told him he was getting off easy. The thing is, when you get this far after being betrayed, there's a part of you that doesn't want to keep complicating things. You just want it to be over. And that is the case with me. It's over now, and I'm glad that it is. I'm not going to do anything to stretch it out even further. $19,000 down the drain. And for what? A guy named Cedric who needed ATM withdrawals like a teenager asking his mom for gas money. And the fact that she tried to spin it as loneliness is hilarious. No, sweetheart. Loneliness doesn't come with luxury hotel receipts and couple spa packages. That's called funding your own humiliation. And the finale? Her being ordered by a judge to repay every cent she spent on her little midlife mistake. Got to love it. She wanted Cedric to live like a king. Now she's out here living paycheck to paycheck while you enjoy peace and discounted spousal support. Karma didn't just bite her. Chewed, swallowed, and sent her the bill. What's the wildest thing you'd catch someone spending your money on? Let us know below. Thank you for joining us today on our space. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.